And they have protested. They've been talking about their falling incentives, the unpredictable earnings. They've been talking about the rising costs as well. So against this backdrop, now we're hearing from the Zomato founder Deepinder Goyal, who's weighed in with a reflective post on X. He has spoken on social media suggesting that the discomfort around gig workers and the kind of work that they do stems from its visibility, the visibility of the gig economy. That inequality today literally rings our doorbell, forcing an emotional reckoning for the consuming class, is what he says. That framing has sparked a wider debate on whether this moment is about perception and guilt, or is it about deeper questions of fairness and value sharing in platform-driven businesses. That debate around the gig economy intensifying now over the past few weeks amidst the strike calls by delivery partners and growing scrutiny of working conditions on platform-based businesses. And into this charged moment, Zomato founder Deepinder Goyal offering this broader reflection, arguing that what unsettles society about gig work is not exploitation, but visibility. The fact that inequality now arrives at our doorstep and forces consumers to confront it directly. Now, this is an argument that moves the conversation beyond wages, beyond algorithms, and it turns it into questions of class and conscience and discomfort. It deserves attention, of course, but it also needs to be examined carefully, which is what we're trying to do here. This current unrest in the gig economy, it's not getting driven by consumer guilt or emotional unease as we see it. It is being driven by economics. Gig workers were never invisible to the system that relies on them. Their labor has always been measured, it has been priced, it has been optimized, and it has been adjusted as well in the businesses that are run. And it is often done quite unilaterally. What has changed over time is not that inequality has become visible, but that the balance between risk and reward has tilted further away from labor as these platforms have scaled and have prospered over a period of time. So when companies grow, valuations rise, when founders accumulate wealth, while earnings per delivery become more volatile, and they're often compressed as well, then the issue is not model discomfort. It is distribution of power, as it were. Strikes emerge not because workers are suddenly seen, but because bargaining power has actually weakened. This is also not a debate about banning gig work or rolling back progress. The platform economy has created livelihoods, no doubt about it, and there is flexibility that did not exist previously. But progress cannot mean that all volatility sits with workers while corporates enjoy stability and upsides. Basic demands like predictable income, like transparency in systems that determine pay, and minimum safeguards. When it comes to safety, these are not ideological asks. They are foundational to any sustainable labor model or even a business model for that matter. So the gig economy has indeed made inequality harder to ignore. There's no doubt about it. But the real test is not whether we are uncomfortable seeing it. It is whether institutions, whether corporates can respond to that visibility with fairer structures rather than philosophical explanations. So the future of this model is going to be decided not at the doorstep of those deliveries, but in how the gains and the risks of businesses are shared. That's our take on the back of Deepinder Goyal's tweet at NDTV Profit. Let's put this in context as well. Dr. Pranab Sen is joining us, macroeconomist and chairman at the Indian Statistical Institute. Dr. Sen, in light of what we're hearing from Deepinder Goyal in that tweet, and which he says is his last word right now on the subject in light of the strike calls that have taken place, and then there has been this entire pushback, as it were, trying to explain it and saying that this is about miscreants. But in the larger context, when you talk about the labor economy and the gig economy in particular right now, Dr. Sen, how do you actually see this entire debate that is now really fructifying into something that is meaningful about corporate culture in India and how the gig economy is going to grow from this point onwards?
What should we restrict it only to the gig economy? Because this is a problem that all casual workers have faced, and gig workers are casual workers by any definition. The difference, I think, is the fact that most gig workers come not from the poor, but from the lower middle class. So there's a strong class element to this. And the pushback that you're seeing, I think, is less an issue of that these people are employed by very specific and very, very large companies. It's that they are casual workers who have both the knowledge and the ability to push back. And I think this is a good thing, provided it spills over into the larger debate about casual work in India.
So the imbalance that we are seeing, Dr. Pranav Sen, when it comes to the asks over here, the balance of power moving away from the labor economy, especially at a time that we need that much more employment. So employment generation as a part of what businesses do, is that being turned into a huge virtue as opposed to how businesses are meant to run in the first place?
No, I don't think it is. I mean, look, the real issue is that gig work is not a permanent occupation. Gig work is something that younger people take up till they find something a little more permanent. So it's a transitional arrangement. And it's a convenient transitional arrangement. So I wouldn't really put it in terms of that balance.
Dr. Sen, when platforms thrive, when they start making they kind of achieve the valuations that they do, and sometimes those are brought into question as well. It's about the kind of corporate culture that India is emerging on our way to Viksit Bharat. As economies grow and thrive, is this a price? Is this the kind of debate that is meant to happen? That this is something that India has to go through to be able to draw a better balance between what the labor economy brings to the table and what corporates need to do to get us to that space of Viksit Bharat?
The gig economy is not unique to developing countries. Developed countries also have them. The real question is, how is the gig economy seen, both by the workers and by the employers? Is it seen as transient, or is it seen as a permanent profession? That really is at the heart of the issue. Because if you think of the term gig, it means it's a part-time, pocket money kind of work. That's what gig systems were originally defined as. If we are saying that we're getting into a situation where it is becoming permanent, then it really is a new labor arrangement.
I ask you this specifically, Dr. Sen, because of that tweet that has been put out by Deepinder Goyal and has been also supported by Sanjeev Bikhchandani. It seems like they are supporting the nature of the beast, as it were, and has turned the argument against consumers, and it's about how we look at a certain class of people, which you started out by saying. So in trying to do that, are corporates passing the buck, as it were? How do we read how corporates are looking at addressing the issue of creating the jobs that they need to, but saying that this is about the consumer and what consumers need to reflect?
Well, it isn't about the consumer. Or in a manner of speaking, they do have a point. What is it that the gig worker does? What it does, in effect, is that it gives us the luxury of not actually having to go out to the market to buy things that we need. Right? So you are actually substituting what was originally unpaid labor by every individual for himself by what is now paid labor. But the point is that to what extent is this benefiting the corporates? And as you rightly said, it's benefiting them substantially. And if that is so, then the question of the corporate-worker relationship, which is an industrial relationship issue, comes back to the fore. So to pass it on to the consumer is kind of unfair, because what the delivery system does is it is providing a service which the household would have carried out on their own. That's all it's doing.
So where does this debate head from here? At the point that we are, and the kind of arguments that are being made for and against, the kind of business ecosystem that we are creating, the kind of governance issues that are at stake. Because here the ask is simple. They want more transparency. They want parity. When you're talking about labor reforms, they want to ensure that they are getting those minimum wages, which they're not getting transparency on right now. And they're talking about safeguards, they're talking about insurance, they're talking about being insured against the kind of accident that could happen in those fast deliveries as well. And they want those quick deliveries to go out. In terms of that balance to be arrived at, Dr. Sen, where does the reality lie on the economic sphere?
No, in the economic sphere, the reality lies in the fact that as a country, we have a very, very large share of our workforce, nearly 40% of our workforce, who are in casual employment, as are gig workers. The point I'm trying to make is, by all means, let's discuss this about the gig workers, because it's a valid demand. The point is that don't restrict it to that level. This is a demand that we should articulate for all casual workers in the country.
Correct.
If you wish to be a Viksit Bharat.
Right. So, but is
otherwise,
yes.
Otherwise, you're looking essentially at your own class structure, saying that these are children of people we know. And this is not how we wish to be treated.
But here, Dr. Sen, there is a fear that is getting articulated that over-regulation of gig work can destroy livelihoods, just based on India's experience with informality. And you said that it's not new. The kind of work that we are talking about under the gig economy is not new. How real is that risk that we are likely to destroy livelihoods? Because that is what is getting articulated over here, that if you're going to over-regulate this, that is the possibility we run.
Well, you know, part-time work and full-time work, this is a perennial problem. And there's already a very clear demarcation about what kind of benefits full-time workers would get that part-time workers don't. Right? This is already there. There's nothing new in this. Extend the same logic.
So are current gig worker protests the sign of a systemic failure, you would say, Dr. Sen, or do you think there is a natural phase now as informal work transitions into a more formal, more regulated ecosystem? What is the bottom line there?
The bottom line is that if let me put it this way. Mm-hmm. We do have a certain degree of formalization of casual work as well. So you talk with any industrialist today, the average corporate in India, particularly in manufacturing, has more casual workers than permanent workers. This is a reality, right? But those casual workers are also protected by labor laws. So there is nothing inherently contradictory about having labor regulations for casual workers.
Right.
Right? The question is, can you formulate it to take into account the specific risks that gig workers face?
Right. So finally, if we...
That's not a large step.
Yes.
And they're not demanding anything unusual.
Correct.
They're just asking for the delivery system to be recognized as an industry.
So if we were to strip away the emotion, Dr. Sen, the philosophy or the philosophical direction that this entire debate is taking, what is that one structural correction that you would suggest that would reduce this unrest without killing opportunity? Because we need opportunity, right?
Yes, we need opportunity. And, so what you're getting is formalization of the corporate structure without giving it the kind of, requirements that are demanded from other formal enterprises. So it's a question of how you recognize the delivery enterprises.
There's no doubt about that.
How do you categorize
Yes.
that?
Correct.
That is where the thing. Otherwise, the labor laws exist.
Yes. So the real question, as you're laying out very correctly, it's not really about the philosophy, the visibility or the guilt. It's about how this risk, reward and responsibility are going to be redistributed in a fast-scaling digital economy. It has existed, but now we are seeing a certain pace to it. And now as gig work becomes a permanent feature of India's labor market, you're talking about that certain formalization that's already underway. Now the challenge for platforms and policymakers alike is going to be to preserve flexibility while also ensuring that there is basic fairness and stability in the businesses that are run and the way that they are run as well. So always a pleasure getting your perspective, Dr. Pranab Sen. Such a pleasure having you with us and getting your entire thought process on how we should look at the latest debate on the gig economy. And we'll keep tracking that. Meanwhile, as we break this down even further, we are looking at more developments taking place. The 90-day work is something that is being addressed by the government. The Labour Ministry is proposing a set of rules for gig workers to be eligible for social security benefits. And for the first time, the government has defined gig work as platform work as well, and aggregators as well. So all of these are getting defined. So these rules, they're going to define daily wages, they're going to define benefit periods, and also dependent parents. So the government has brought in this 90-day rule for gig workers. What it really means is that they have to be associated with a platform for at least 90 days with one aggregator. So this rule extends to 120 days for workers who are engaged with multiple aggregators in the last financial year. So all gig and platform workers who are aged more than 16 must register on a government portal, and they have to use their Aadhaar and other documents for that kind of registration. The eligible worker must register with Aadhaar and their documents, and they will be issued an identity card as well. These benefits will continue until the workers turn 60, so the minimum age is 16, and the workers, until they turn 60, all the benefits will apply. So that is the big push coming from the government side.